a lot of the immigrants that came here in the early 1900s spoke as we refer to as turn-of-the-century Finnish, and so a lot of the words have actually changed. For example, people in the early part of the 20th century would use the word nissu. Well, we still use it too, but as a matter of fact, that's rather an antiquated word. And if you go to Finland today, you'll see that they're using the word pulla. Back in the early 1900s, the Finns here would be calling an airplane ilmalaiva, which means airship, actually. Now they call it lentakone over in Finland. So like every language, it's evolving. Years ago, people would call ice cream jääkedma, ice and cream. If you go to Finland today, they call it jäätelö. Jäätelö. We have to be very careful how we pronounce our words. I know our teacher, Kidsti, is always telling us we have to pronounce every letter. We have to be very careful because there's a lot of subtleties in the language, and if we mispronounce something, you might find yourself saying something that you really don't want to be saying. Here's one I get a kick out of. If you talk about a village, like the village of Pigeon Cove, it's a kylä. If you use the word yes, one of the words for yes would be kyllä, so it's just a little bit different. And then the word for a snooper, a person who snoops, is kylä. So you could see you can get into trouble if you're not pronouncing those words correctly. Here's another one, another subtlety. The word for who is kukka. Yet the word for flower, you pick a rose out of the garden, it's kukka. It's just slightly different. Finnish has a lot of compound words, which helps us out a lot. They sometimes look rather intimidating to us, but very often you can break them apart, and they are in fact quite logical. For example, hajuvesi is really perfume, and the haju part means smell, and the vesi is water, so it's smell water. And that's perfume for Finnish. This word, hammaslääkäri, is actually a dentist. Hammas is tooth, and lääkäri is doctor, so tooth doctor is dentist. I like this one. It's a self-service restaurant. Must be a cafeteria. It looks really long. Itse palvelu ravintola. Itse is self, and palvelu is service. Ravintola is restaurant. There's really a long word. You'll have to look at it over at that table. Somebody put it over there. Oh my goodness, I don't know how many letters are in it. Did anybody count how many letters are in that word? But take a look at it. It really is something. I thought I had a long one, but that one tops it. Somebody gave me this palindrome a couple of weeks ago, and you probably remember that a palindrome is spelled the same forward or backwards. And this happens to have, I did count 19 letters in it. And it means a lie merchant. We're not really too sure of the etymology of the word, but anyway, saipua, kivi, kauppias. And the saipua part means soap, and the kivi is stone, and the kauppias is merchant. And I guess years ago, people used soapstone sinks, and from what I understand, stoves even. So that was something new to me. Thought that was kind of interesting. I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs. Have any of you read Waino Ray's memoir called A Young Finn on Cape Ann? He wrote it almost 10 years ago. Well, there were a couple of paragraphs that I thought you might want to hear. It tells about Waino Ray's experience at the Lane School in the 1920s when he was in the 1st grade, when he didn't know any English. His teacher was Miss Rowley. I think my mother had Miss Rowley too. Your father must have Elena too. Did you too? Really? Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Anyway, Waino Ray wrote, It is difficult to imagine a situation more trying than that of first grade teacher Miss Ellen Rowley, who was repeatedly faced with a class full of non-English speaking pupils such as myself. I can still visualize the classroom with its blackboard and austere Miss Rowley trying to extract responses from all of us Finns. Unforgettably, unable to pronounce a multi-syllabled English word, I was taken over her knee for the only spanking I ever had in my life. I was crushed, but I learned. And then one other paragraph. Another interesting aspect of my Americanization also stemmed from Miss Rowley's use of the word smart. She had innocently mentioned to the class that the juice from the rind of an orange would make one's eyes smart. Can you guess what's happening next? The next day at recess time, I avoided contact with my classmates and huddled myself into the corner between the schoolhouse and the backyard fence, hoping that no one could see me. Determined that I would have the smartest eyes in the class, I squeezed the juice of the rind of an orange into my eye and startlingly learned that the word smart had two meanings. Although my eyes did smart, they were no smarter than before. I myself, however, was a bit smarter. Through Miss Rowley's patience and understanding, we did learn our ABCs, as well as some basic English language skills. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm just going to conclude with a little anecdote. I did read all about how the Finns are known for being, one book called it Reluctant Communicators. They're very quiet, they're very silent, but I think a lot of that is changing now because Finland has had to come out into the global arena, so to speak. And so they're moving out of that. And I'm sure a lot of you remember the 60 Minutes piece everybody was up in arms with, remember, about the Finns? Yeah. Do you remember that, how they pictured them as so dour, and that was really something. But just thinking about how the Finnish people were so, especially around the turn of the century, and maybe even now some people, very quiet and used to silence. They didn't have to have a conversational flow going all the time. And I think that's very well illustrated by my uncle John Kielinen. He used to have coffee weekly with Reino Mäkinen, his friend Reino, who has the sauna up at Michael's restaurant. And of course Reino was rather a quiet man. And I said to my uncle, after one such coffee event, I knew that Reino had been to Hawaii with his wife Evelyn, so I said to my uncle, how was Reino's trip to Hawaii? And he said to me, I don't know, he didn't say, and I didn't ask.